And we are back on this Zero Hour. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and of course, we are all still recovering from the tragedy in Orlando. Here to join us and discuss that tragedy a bit is Michelangelo Signorile. Michelangelo is editor at large of Huffington Post, Gay Voices. He's an author, a journalist, a commentator, and the host of the Michelangelo Signorile Show. Michelangelo, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's a very tough week. I know that, and you've written about the shooting in Orlando a couple times. How are you holding up, first of all?
It's been, I think, a week that has had emotions unfolding as it's gone on. At first, it was real shock and just, I think, people trying to grapple with the enormity of what happened. I think as the week went on, people pulled together and supported each other. I think now a lot of people are very angry. They're angry at the hatred that we still see against LGBT people. They're angry at the fact that anybody who harbors that hatred can get a gun that is so destructive so easily and kill so many people. They're angry at the media overplaying or trying to steer this narrative more toward international terrorism and not focused on that homophobia, which has only, kind of brought out more homophobia. We've now seen two different pastors praising this shooting, one in Sacramento and one in Arizona, which just proves the hate that's still out there. I mean, two Christian pastors saying that this was a good thing that these people were killed because homosexuality is a sin. So we still see the hate, and I think it's galvanizing people to speak up.
Oh, I certainly hope so. And in any moment of tragedy, we always hope that it's going to be a teaching moment. What you've said about the need to emphasize hate crimes, I couldn't agree with that more, Michelangelo. I've been talking about that a lot. The fact that, for example, they want us to be thinking about the handful of terrorist incidents that have taken place involving extremists of a Muslim background. They don't want to talk about the many hate crimes that are committed against LGBT people in this country every year. The last year we have statistics for hate crimes. The FBI recorded about 5,500 hate crimes in 2014, and about 20% of them, 18 to 20%, were against LGBT people. So if you figure that, first of all, they're seriously underreporting those kinds of crimes, then well over 1,000 crimes against LGBT people are committed every year in this country out of hate. Why aren't we talking about that?
That's right. I was just looking today at some numbers showing LGBT people are the most likely target of hate crimes, more than any other minority group, and it is something that has often happened at gay spaces, nightclubs, and bars, which for LGBT people are places they go for refuge, places that are very important for gathering, and maybe, for some people, it's the first place where they met other gay people, or lesbian or bisexual or transgender people. They left their homes. They weren't accepted at home. They found their community. And then these people who hate know that these are very, very important places, that they're sanctuaries, so they have targeted them historically. And we're not seeing a lot of that. We can go back to the 70s when there was a firebombing at a New Orleans nightclub, and over 30 people died. In New York in 1980, there was somebody with a submachine gun who sprayed bullets into a bar and would have killed more than the number of people he killed, but his gun got jammed. There was Eric Rudolph, the Olympic Park bomber, remember, who was an Army of God terrorist, and he attacked the Olympic Park, but he also attacked lesbian bars in Atlanta. And we just saw in 2013 a man who set fire to a bar in Seattle saying he wanted to kill gay people. And then just last fall we had attacks on bars in Dallas. So, all of that is missing from this. This is being seen as some isolated thing that's being targeted, against a group of people because of some sort of connection to ISIS. But in fact, what all of these other attacks I discussed have in common with this is someone who hated gay people, some of it religiously based by different faiths, some of it part of the hate we see of white supremacy and against Jews and blacks and others in this country.
Yeah, I wonder your thoughts about this, Michelangelo Signorile, but I feel that that hatred of gay people, of LGBT people, it kind of, you can find it anywhere there are people with a certain set of issues. You can find it in Christianist extremism, you can find it in Islamist extremism, you can find it in, look, there was hatred of homosexuals under Joseph Stalin and repression under, and
right.
So the question, I guess, is, what's the best way to fight that? Isn't it by, first of all, naming it and bringing it out into the open? I don't know if I've heard different stories about whether this particular killer was maybe closeted himself or struggling with gay feelings of his own. But whatever it is, don't we really need to name the real beast, which is homophobia?
Absolutely, and we know from the people who worked with him, with this killer, they said that he made anti-gay comments. He made comments against other groups as well, Jews and others. He was known by his ex-wife to make comments a lot about gay people, nasty comments, maybe as well from these reports we're seeing. Part of that was a self-hatred. His father said that he seemed to really get very angry when he saw two gay men kissing. And it seems like, from what we know, he may have latched on to ISIS or one of these groups as a way to give himself a higher purpose, but it was a higher purpose for something deep-seated that he felt, which was a hatred toward gays, growing up in a country that, and he did grow up in this country, he's an American, a country that has tolerated that hatred and allowed for it and allows politicians to spew it in the middle of what we're seeing is a backlash against equality. After the Supreme Court ruling last year, we saw now over 100 bills, and I'm talking about, of course, the marriage equality ruling, 100 bills across the country in state legislatures that are trying to thwart LGBT equality. And every one of those bills is accompanied by some legislator, Republicans mostly, on the floor of a state legislature railing against gay people and saying that we're less than equal. So that's all part of the culture in which this took place.
Well, Michelangelo Signorile, there are so many things that offend me about the way the right has been handling this, including, by the way, the fact that this guy claimed allegiance to ISIL, but also to Hezbollah, which is the enemy of ISIL and comes from a different branch of Islam. But so he didn't seem to know quite as much about that as he knew about hating gay people. And what offends me the most or hurts me the most about all of this is it isn't even the demagoguery and the extremism that they're trying to fuel using this incident and the hatred of it's the hatred of the Muslim minority in this country, but it's also the erasure of the victims. That the victims, it's erasing the letters LGBT out of this entire crime for their own purpose, so that it feels to me as if they're trying to pretend the victims don't even exist.
Yes, it's something I think that is so lost in so much of the coverage we've seen, so much of the media coverage, and so much of the way that the politicians have spoken about it, and just kind of not wanting to focus on who these people are, not wanting to focus on a name who these people are, and sort of trying to maybe on one level make this experience something that we all share and erase gay people, but on the other hand, not wanting to, even in this tragedy, speak to the bigotry against LGBT people.
And one of the things you wrote this week was a piece for the Huffington Post, and we're talking with writer and commentator Michelangelo Signorile about entitled "Why We Need LGBT Pride Now More Than Ever." Tell us about that, if you would.
Well, there's always been a kind of relationship with pride that I think a lot of people have had, that is kind of a love-hate relationship. People feel drawn to pride marches and pride celebrations when they come out, but then they kind of think, oh, I'm now out and integrated in the community. I don't need to do that anymore. Sometimes they think the whole community is accepted now and we don't need to do that anymore. There have been various points where there's a belief, and I think it happens with every minority group. I think you look at African Americans, and I think you see the same thing now, realization now with a new generation, with Black Lives Matter and other groups saying, no, we are still under attack in this culture. I think it's happened with LGBT people as well. There are moments where people think, oh, we've been accepted, we've arrived, and then something happens, whether it was when Matthew Shepard was killed back in 1998 or this event. And it just shows why pride, gay pride and parades and marches are important. They bring people together. They create that power that you have when you have those numbers. And it shows why we need to do that every year and show solidarity.
So I couldn't agree more, and I'm wondering, Michelangelo, whether, in a sense, the other reason that the Republicans have been trying to sort of ungay this whole tragedy is because they themselves are not count on homophobia as part of their platform. Am I being too harsh? If I am, let me know. But
I think they are really in a struggle right now within their party, as we can see,
right,
with what's going on with Donald Trump on a variety of issues. But one struggle is what to do on this issue where Americans have moved dramatically, and yet in their party, they're basically captive to a group of people who still harbor this animosity, still want to keep LGBT people from having rights. These people represent a very large base of their party still, and they also have a lot of money, like the gun lobby and others. They also have lots of money, millions of dollars that come from these Christian evangelical groups, and so it is something they are captive to, even as they're trying and struggling with being part of the mainstream of America. They can't move forward because these people are pulling them back.
Well, let me think about that a little bit, because I think you make a great point. There's this thing people can call on when it's not in their political interest to do something, but it's the right thing to do anyway. Oh, yeah, leadership. I think that's what they call it.
Right.
And courage is the other thing. So, no, I hear you, and I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly the right analysis. And I'll tell you, Michelangelo, that what I felt and after reading your piece was, I couldn't agree more that we need LGBT pride, and we need visibility, and we need to normalize holding hands in public, kissing in public, and whatever it may be. That the world is changing, and for some people, they're frightened. They don't know why their way of life is dying. They don't understand the economic forces or the political forces, and so they look for somebody to blame. But the best way around that is to confront society with love and truth, and I don't know a better way to do it. I mean, I hope you agree with me. I think you do. What do you think?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the last part of that.
I was just asking if you agree that there's no better way through this crisis except through openness, holding hands, kissing, LGBT parades.
Yes. There's still a visceral reaction, even among many people who accept equality or say they do. There's still a visceral reaction often when people see two people holding hands who are of the same gender or kissing, and being public about it. And it's something we have to really desensitize people to by simply showing them. It's something that even on television for a very long time or in films we didn't see. We're now just starting to see same-sex intimacy in culture, but we have so much further to go. And so, people have to not feel afraid and really just be who they are, and in that way we'll desensitize people to this, because it is the only way we're going to get people to really get past that, is to simply see people being who they are and not closeting even their intimacy.
Right, and I can only add to that I would say to people who do feel uncomfortable that embrace the discomfort. It's part of growth. It means you're having an opportunity to grow and evolve along with society. So, Michelangelo Signorile, before we let you go, how can people find your podcast?
Well, I'm on Sirius XM every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM channel 127, Progress.
Well, great. And, of course, they can find you on the Huffington Post. So, Michelangelo, as always, great to talk to you. Hopefully next time it will be under happier circumstances, but thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks so much for having me on and focusing on this topic. It's very important.